Have you ever felt like no matter how much effort you put into a relationship, you're always just an option, never the priority? It feels like you're on the back burner while she only gives you attention when it's convenient for her. You try harder, you text more, you offer more of yourself, hoping to be valued, but it seems like the more you do, the less she cares. Now here's the truth. The problem isn't that you aren't good enough. It's that your approach needs a mindset shift. Today we're going to talk about how Stoicism, combined with psychology, can help you become her priority, not just an option. You don't need to play manipulative games or follow shallow dating advice. You need to learn the core of what makes you valuable, starting with the Stoic principle of self-mastery and psychological insights into human behavior. So, let's dive in. 1. Understand the psychology of scarcity. Let's start with a simple concept in human psychology, the scarcity principle. In his famous work, Influence, Robert Cialdini explains that people place higher value on things that are less available. It's why rare diamonds are so expensive, or why limited edition sneakers sell out in minutes. Humans naturally value scarcity. This principle directly applies to relationships as well. If you're always available, always texting back immediately, always dropping your own priorities to fit into hers, you're unconsciously telling her that your time and attention are not valuable. Think about it. When was the last time you deeply appreciated something that was always right there at your fingertips? Probably not often. Here's a real-life example. Let's say you text her constantly, always initiate plans, and never give her space. At first, she might enjoy the attention, but over time, she'll start to see it as a given rather than something special. She'll feel less compelled to prioritize you because you're already too available. In one TEDx talk on behavioral economics, Dr. Dan Ariely explains how scarcity makes us value things more. In a romantic context, when you're less available, it triggers that same psychological effect. You become a rare gem in her life. Now, this doesn't mean playing hard to get in a manipulative way. Instead, it's about being genuinely busy. Busy with your own life, goals, and purpose, which brings us to our next point. 2. Project self-worth through Stoic detachment. The Stoics were masters at emotional detachment, not in a cold, unfeeling way, but in a way that kept them focused on what they could control and indifferent to what they couldn't. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, repeatedly emphasized that your self-worth should never depend on external things, including the validation of others. Now, apply this to relationships. If you are constantly seeking her approval, looking for signs that she values you, or needing her to validate your worth, you are giving her control over your emotions. And here's the catch. Once you place that power in someone else's hands, they will value it less. Think of it like this. When you chase something too eagerly, it often runs away. In TEDx speaker Guy Winch's talk on emotional hygiene, he highlights that self-worth should come from within, not from how others treat you. When you internalize this lesson, you stop looking to others for validation, and that shift in mindset makes you far more attractive. People are drawn to confidence, and nothing exudes confidence more than emotional independence. One powerful Stoic concept is the idea of detaching from outcomes. In a relationship, this means you care about the person, but you don't hinge your entire happiness on whether she reciprocates your feelings or gives you attention. When you stop chasing validation and start living as your own center of gravity, you send a powerful message. I'm secure in myself, with or without you. Here's a modern example. Imagine you're texting her and she doesn't reply right away. The old you might have gotten anxious, sending more texts, trying to figure out if you've done something wrong. But now, with Stoic detachment, you take a deep breath and remind yourself that her actions are outside your control. You go back to focusing on your own life, your own growth. This shift makes you seem much more composed and in control, which will naturally attract her interest. 3. Focus on your purpose, inspired by Angela Duckworth's TEDx talk on grit. One of the most attractive traits you can have is a strong sense of purpose. Angela Duckworth, a psychologist and TEDx speaker, introduced the concept of grit, the combination of passion and perseverance for long-term goals. This is crucial when it comes to being prioritized in a relationship. Why? Because people are naturally drawn to those who are driven by something bigger than themselves. If your whole life revolves around her, it's easy for her to lose interest. But if you have a deep, burning passion for something, whether it's your career, a personal project, or self-improvement, she will respect and be drawn to that. Look at any high achiever, whether in sports, business, or creative fields. They don't drop their mission just because someone enters their life. They keep grinding, keep working towards their vision, and that singular focus makes them magnetic. Stoicism teaches us the importance of living in alignment with our values and purpose. Marcus Aurelius believed that humans are at their best when they are in service to their higher calling. When you live with purpose, you automatically project strength, ambition, and determination. And here's the thing. Women are naturally attracted to men who have a mission. It shows that you're not just floating aimlessly through life. You're building something, and she'll want to be a part of that. Here's a modern example. Let's say you're working on building a business or mastering a new skill. You don't cancel your plans just because she's suddenly free one evening. You stay focused on what matters most to you. By doing this, you're signaling that your time is valuable and that she needs to align with your purpose, not the other way around. This dynamic shift is incredibly powerful, and she'll naturally start prioritizing you because you're prioritizing yourself. 4. Give less attention to get more. Law of reciprocity. There's an interesting psychological phenomenon called the law of reciprocity. This principle suggests that when someone gives us something, we feel a natural urge to give something back. In relationships, this can work in a subtle yet powerful way. When you're constantly giving attention, validation, and compliments without much effort from her side, you create an imbalance. She becomes used to receiving without giving anything in return. This can lead her to take you for granted. However, when you start pulling back some of that attention, in a natural, not manipulative way, it shifts the dynamic. For example, let's say you've been texting her multiple times a day, but you suddenly start focusing more on your own projects, giving her space to reach out to you. Psychologically, she'll feel the absence of your attention, and her mind will naturally seek balance. She'll likely start texting you more, trying to regain that attention. But the key here isn't to play games. It's to live a life so full and purposeful that you don't need to constantly give attention. When you're focused on your mission, the natural byproduct is that you'll have less attention to give, and that scarcity will make her want it more. Here's another example. Imagine you've been going out of your way to plan dates, always initiating conversations. But now, instead of chasing her attention, you pull back slightly. You let her initiate plans. You let her wonder what you're up to. The law of reciprocity will kick in, and she'll likely start giving more effort because she now feels the need to reciprocate. In Stoicism, this aligns with the idea of not overextending yourself. Marcus Aurelius often spoke of conserving your energy and only giving what's necessary. In relationships, this means not pouring all your effort into someone who isn't matching it. By pulling back, you create a natural flow of reciprocity. 5. Master emotional control. Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence. One of the most critical elements of being someone's priority is mastering your emotions. Emotional intelligence, popularized by psychologist Daniel Goleman in his TEDx talk, plays a huge role in how we navigate relationships. Men who can remain calm, composed, and in control of their emotions are seen as incredibly attractive because they exude a sense of stability. When you react emotionally to everything she does, whether that's not texting back fast enough, canceling plans, or saying something that triggers you, you come across as insecure and needy. On the flip side, when you remain emotionally steady, she'll view you as someone with deep inner strength. Stoicism places great emphasis on emotional control. Seneca, a Roman Stoic philosopher, once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." In relationships, this means that most of our emotional suffering comes from how we interpret events, not from the events themselves. For instance, if she doesn't respond to your message right away, your mind might spiral into thinking she's lost interest, but the reality is, she might just be busy. Here's a powerful real-world example. Imagine you're out on a date, and she says something that could be interpreted as a slight. Maybe she mentions an ex or comments on your career in a way that feels dismissive. The insecure reaction would be to get defensive or confrontational. But with emotional control, you take a deep breath, recognize that her words are just words, and calmly redirect the conversation without reacting emotionally. This shows immense strength and maturity, which naturally makes her view you as a high-value man. Remember, emotional control isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's about choosing how you respond. By mastering this, you'll naturally rise in her priorities because she'll see you as someone who can handle challenges without losing your composure. 6. Set boundaries and enforce them, inspired by Dr. Henry Cloud's work on boundaries. In his famous work Boundaries, Dr. Henry Cloud explains that people often fail in relationships because they don't set clear, healthy boundaries. In many cases, men fall into the trap of trying to please their partner so much that they lose sight of their own needs and values. But here's the truth. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's a necessary act of self-respect. If you don't have clear boundaries, she will unconsciously test your limits. This isn't malicious, it's human nature. People push to see how far they can go, and if you constantly let her walk all over your boundaries, whether that's canceling plans last minute, being disrespectful, or not reciprocating effort, you're teaching her that it's okay to treat you as an option. Here's an example. Imagine she frequently cancels plans with you or shows up late without much regard for your time. If you let this slide every time, you're signaling that your time isn't valuable. Instead, a man with strong boundaries would calmly but firmly express that his time is important, and repeated cancellations won't be tolerated. By setting this boundary, you're teaching her to respect you, and respect is the foundation of being someone's priority. In Stoicism, Epictetus often spoke about the importance of defining what you will and will not accept in life. Boundaries are a way of protecting your peace, your time, and your self-respect. By setting and enforcing them, you ensure that you're never just an option. You're someone who demands respect and prioritization. 7. Cultivate a life of abundance, not neediness. Finally, one of the most important shifts you can make to become her priority is to cultivate a life of abundance. In psychological terms, scarcity breeds neediness, while abundance breeds confidence. When you live with a mindset of abundance, you know that you don't need any one person to complete you. You are already whole. This is where Stoicism can be incredibly powerful. The Stoics believed that true contentment comes from within, not from external sources. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that everything he needed to be happy was already inside him. When you adopt this mindset, you stop seeking validation from her and instead focus on building a life that fulfills you, with or without her attention. Here's a real-world example. Let's say you're dating someone, and she starts pulling away or giving less attention. Instead of panicking or chasing her, you calmly continue living your best life, spending time with friends, pursuing your hobbies, and working towards your goals. You're not dependent on her for your happiness because you've cultivated a life that's rich and full on its own. This mindset of abundance is incredibly attractive because it shows that you're not desperate. And when you're not desperate, she'll naturally feel more drawn to you because you're not chasing after her. You're simply living your life, and she'll want to be part of it. Becoming a priority in someone's life isn't about manipulation or trying to change who you are. It's about cultivating inner strength, emotional intelligence, and a life of purpose. When you stop chasing validation and start living in alignment with your own values, people will naturally begin to prioritize you. Stoicism teaches us that the most important relationship we have is the one with ourselves. So, focus on that, and watch as others start to value you for who you are. Now, it's your turn. Shift your mindset, embrace Stoic wisdom, and live with purpose. You'll no longer be an option. You'll be her priority.